There and good evening. This is Business Today on Channel I. Now on this program we talk about business, entrepreneurship and much more. So keep tuning into today's episode as well, and you can see what we're going to discuss about business today. And well, on today's program we are joined with Mr. Chaminda Ramasundara. He's a Senior Director of the Administrative Division of the Industrial Development Board here to talk about the IDB and about the industrial exhibition going on, which actually went last week as well. Mr. Chaminda, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening.
Okay, so before we dive into the exhibition itself, let's start off with a bit of an introduction about the Industrial Development Board.
Industrial Development Board, it's enacted by a Parliament Act in 1969. Our head office, it's at Moratua, and we have altogether about 714 employees. We are scattered island-wide. We have 25 branches, and on top of that we have 16 industrial states, that's also island-wide. And our vision is to develop all industries in Sri Lanka.
Right, okay. Now you are the Senior Director of the Administrative Division. What does that role entail? What are some of your duties and responsibilities?
Of course, when it comes to administration, human resources development, procurement, legal and transportation, it's under my purview. So we recruit employees and we give them the proper training, the professional advice and so on to come up on the succession plan or come up on the career ladder.
Right, okay. Now before you got into this position, tell us about some of your background, where you started from and your journey to get here.
Of course, I started my career at KPMG Ford Roads. I was focusing mainly on finance, but throughout my journey I had a very good the communication as well as the convincing ability to others. So of course finance is a number crunching business. You are always dealing with P&L, balance sheet, cash flow and so on, but especially the convincing ability. So in order to convince, you'll have to think, always get into their shoes and think, and you'll have to win their heart and sell the ideas. Okay. Otherwise it's not a psychological reason.
Right.
So because of that, in early 2000 onwards, I slowly started diverting my attention into human resources management. So in fact I went with this CIPM program, and I'm an associate member of CIPM, and on top of that I have done my masters in business administration at Postgraduate Institute of Management, and I did my masters in sociology, which is very important, which is linked to psychology.
Okay.
So that once when you have a good mixture, I think you'll be able to win somebody else's heart and convey the proper message.
Right. Now it's excellent that you brought that up, because I know a lot of people who can relate to this story. They are number crunching people, they are financial specialists, but when it comes to the people aspect, they feel like they are lacking and it's hard for them to develop a connection. From what you mentioned, do you mind sharing maybe a tip or two on how you manage to establish such relationships with people?
That's I think what I feel is that's a bit of a psychological jargon.
Right.
So always once when you deal with people, you get different caliber of people. Of course, after that I have worked with different organizations, different cultures. I was the head of human resources for Kothalavala Defence University.
Okay.
As after that I was attached to World Bank in early childhood development project, which was mainly focused to plantation. So of course mingling with people, mingling with different characters and mingling with different hierarchies. So at the KDU you get the rhythm and the fathom of the military crew, and when it comes to plantation, especially the upcountry, you get a lot of deserving people and you get a lot of deserving characters.
Right.
And when in fact I have worked for certain multinational organizations also, and I have dealt with different entrepreneurs, family concerned business also, so I can understand their rhythm and the fathom and their culture, how they communicate with people, how inspiring, how they are getting things done in an inspired way.
Right.
So rather than this, I think the ordering, demanding, commanding version is outdated now. The most important thing, with a smile we'll have to get things done in a diplomatic way.
Right. Great advice. Now, coming back to the Industrial Development Board, how exactly does the IDB help Sri Lankan entrepreneurs?
Of course, Sri Lankan entrepreneurs, I think I'll start from the history. Like, of course, we had this bit of an uncomfortable journey with this war, the Northeast War for 30 years. So because of that, I think most of them are scattered like. So on top of that, during last few years, we had this corona problem, we had this fuel issue and so on. So most of them were going through a extremely bad, turbulent period. Like, it was a lot of uncertainties around us. So we don't know what will happen tomorrow. Even the price escalation, inflation and so on. So it was so many doubts around us. So to be frank, when you try to understand the Sri Lankan lifestyle from the sociological point of view, the suicidal rate is pretty high, crime rates pretty high. On top of that, the insane rate is also pretty high. So you get a lot of people, in fact, they have not focused properly for one objective. So entrepreneurs also, we are focusing on one objective, and we are giving them a lot of professional advice on financial jargons, then the technology, infrastructure, strategic planning, and we are doing the need analysis also.
Right.
And especially the industrial research also we are focusing on. So we know where is the gap and where to cater, at what time, at what cost. So that is very important. That's an innovative way of handling this industrial growth.
Right. Now, coming to the Industry 23 exhibition, where did the inspiration come from and the need to have such an exhibition in Sri Lanka?
Sri Lanka, the gross national production is 16.8, and our 5 years objective is to jack up the figure up to 30%.
Okay.
And the entrepreneurship figure is also 2.8, and within 5 years we are planning to jack up to at least 10%, so that all will be benefited. And in order to have a export-oriented manufacturing economy. So that was the main idea for us to go with this sort of a industry exhibition and to have everybody under one roof. So of course we are really lucky. We had about 700 stalls, and the buyers, sellers, and the supply chain management, the logistics hubs and so on. So I think a lot of business negotiations took place, especially for this exhibition. A lot of ambassadors from foreign countries came, and most of them, even from rural areas, people came and they got a lot of information. So this disseminating this proper industry knowledge and the know-how, the technology, the latest versions are very important. So this international and the local collaboration, I think, gave them a tremendous support to local industrialists.
Right. Now, when it comes to everything that you just mentioned, how did one really connect with people from the stalls? Because when the average person comes in, maybe someone who's interested in starting a business, someone with a venture of sorts, how were they able to connect with the suppliers and develop a relationship?
We have a professional advice division. So if it's a startup, we'll be just, as I highlighted before, the need analysis will be doing it accordingly.
Right.
So based on the need or based on the necessity, maybe woman entrepreneurship, maybe a startup project or whatever. So based on those things, we'll be guiding them accordingly.
Okay.
And of course, we have diverted to 21 sectors. So based on the sector, you have the sector experts with us. So based on their sector experts' advice, we'll be sending them for counseling, and according to, based on their requirement, we'll be handling it.
Right. And how significant was this exhibition compared to maybe some of the other smaller scale exhibitions which have taken place in Sri Lanka before?
We are planning to go ahead with the international standards like the Canton Fair and so on.
Right.
So this was the highest exhibition with regard to industries, and it was blessed by the government. and having 700 stalls under one roof, it's a bit of a hectic scenario. So I'll have to thank my team because of their tireless contribution. We made it success.
Right. And apart from the exhibition, I believe you had another event as well. It will be going on till June. Would you like to talk about that event as well?
That is our virtual exhibition,
right,
which is available till July 10th on World Wide Web.
Okay.
So those who didn't come, the foreign buyers came, and a lot of maybe from the rural sector, northeast, most of them came to Colombo. But if they have the opportunity to go through this physically, so based on the virtual platform, till July 10th, it's available on World Wide Web.
Right. And when it comes to that particular project, why did you feel the need to have a virtual version of that as well?
That is also based on the need and the necessity.
Right.
Of course, in this busy schedule, I think sometimes most of them are not in a position to physically come and stay in Colombo for a couple of days. So because of that, now with the latest technology, maybe through WhatsApp, Viber, Google and everything, you name it, they have it. We are, of course, on the technology platform, we are well developed. So I think the management took a decision, it's better. The first time we are going with this virtual platform, so that they'll be able to, from their home, through their laptop or through their mobile, they'll be able to go through and they'll be able to get a lot of information. So information is also very important to either to start up business or maybe for the established business also, in order to get this information with regard to supply chain management, logistic management or whatever. They'll be able to get more information with regard to their particular industry.
Okay. Now, apart from the individual persons who attended this exhibition, how does the Sri Lankan economy benefit from such a venture?
Of course, most of the ambassadors visited, so I think it's a eye-opening session for everybody. So what is available in Sri Lanka, what we can manufacture in Sri Lanka, what are the benefits. Of course, now this unemployment rate is also pretty high in Sri Lanka, but if you start up a business and if you give an opportunity to another individual, if you try to recruit another employee and give them the proper employment opportunity, so even that particular family will be also getting benefited. So that's an advantage. So on top of that, all these multinational companies gave us a lot of sponsorship, mainly Dialogue, Damro, Sampath Bank and so on. So that is also, they wanted to invest more and to do a proper exhibition to disseminate this particular maybe the latest technology, or maybe with regard to raw materials or infrastructure or so on, to mainly focus to export-oriented manufacturing economy.
Right. And what are some of the global economy implications?
Of course, because of this dollar crisis, we had a lot of issues. But if we are in a position to jack up, as I highlighted before, the gross national production from 16.8 to 30% within next 5 years, as well as the entrepreneurship from 2.8 to 10% during next 5 years, I think you will be able to have a balanced economy. But a very pathetic situation is those who go ahead with these entrepreneurship degree programs also, they prefer to work under somebody. So that's a very pathetic situation in Sri Lanka. So they'll have to be dynamic, they'll have to be results oriented, and they'll have to get the proper leadership. And if they can go ahead with another, if they can become an entrepreneur, employment opportunities, so it will be glamorous and it will be fantastic, and automatically the country economy will bloom. And they now, of course, analyze the past, maybe the Malibu Group, Dasa Group, Navaloka Group, and so many entrepreneurs, they have come from the grassroots level, but they have given a lot of employment opportunity to 1,000 and odd people. So that's, of course, they have come up on the professional ladder and they have contributed in return to those particular organizations, and those particular organizations, I think they are doing extremely well with the professional knowledge.
Right. And when it comes to starting up a business, how do you think times have changed when it comes to an entrepreneur setting up a small business from scratch, back in the day versus now? Do you think there are any hardships or more challenges, or do you think it's a bit easier?
You get a lot of hardships, but yet with the latest technology, I think most of the information is available on the website. But I think the most of the rural people, they are not familiar with all this information and how to gather information and how to go ahead with certain business. So writing up even research proposals are done by IDB, so that it will be quite comfortable for them. So if they come and seek advice from us, we are there to train them, coach them, guide them and mentor them, so that of course it will be they'll be able to take up the challenge with our advice.
Okay. Now you correctly mentioned before, a lot of students who undergo these entrepreneurship programs actually end up working for someone else. In your opinion, what do you think is the main driving factor behind this?
Of course, the main driving factor is their psychology. I think sometimes even a lot of influential factors there. You try to migrate, you try to leave the country. So that sort of they are going ahead on negative platform like. But if they are with the available resources, with the available technology, with the available knowledge, with the available advice, if they can start up a business, I think they can flourish and nourish, and they can always contribute more to the economy. But for that, you should have this leadership ability. Okay. It's in this sort of a turbulent period. Of course, we were going ahead with a very pathetic situation last couple of years, but now I think gradually we are recovering. So during this turbulent period, if they can take the proper leadership, proper advice from proper organizations, I think starting up business is not a problem. It's a bit of a challenge, but with our advice and guidance, I think it's even an average person will be able to come up on the ladder.
Right. Now, speaking of those who migrate to different countries, do you have any advice for them? Maybe to go there for a short-term basis and give back to the country, or return to the country? What would be your advice?
So that's a lovely question, and migrating at this crucial juncture, I think it's not a proper solution. We were born in Sri Lanka, so we should be proud with all these Sri Lankan products. Even as I mentioned, the Melipan biscuits, they started from the grassroots level, but the Asia's #1 biscuit manufacturing company. Likewise, we'll have to be proud with our own stuff. And never mind if you, even for your higher studies or whatever, if you try to go for a short period, but if you can contribute and if you can appreciate Sri Lankan products, so that is very important. I think our psychology has to be mainly focused on those things. Now, always we think, no, import items, the quality-wise good, standard-wise good. No, it's the other way. So the Sri Lankan products are now with the quality and the status and all the raw material, ingredients or whatever. I think the Sri Lankan products are much higher than other products.
Exactly. Now, for some people, the stigma which goes around, if it's made in Sri Lanka, for some it seems like it's a lower quality product, when in fact some of the biggest brands in the world are manufactured in Sri Lanka, especially textile. So even they incorporate Sri Lankan products, hopefully we'll be able to erase that stigma which has been built up. So from the large scale industries, how are the small and medium scale industries benefited from the exhibition and from the developments you have? From the large scale industries, small and medium scale industries, they had a lot of problems, especially with regard to finance. Okay. Of course, small and medium scale industries, they had a lot of financial difficulties as well as a lot of financial barriers. So because of that, even organizations like Sampath Bank, Ceylon Bank, they joined us for the exhibition, and they're trying to discuss, negotiate about all the credit facilities they can give to small and medium entrepreneurs. If you don't manage your finance properly, you'll be ending up with bankruptcy, leading to, I told you at the beginning, maybe the suicidal rate or unfortunate incidents. So because of that, you should know how to balance your finance, how to manage your finance. A lot of financial organizations are there, banks are there to go ahead with small and medium entrepreneurs credit facilities. Right. Now, you mentioned that a lot of foreign delegates as well as high-profile government individuals graced the event. Apart from their contribution on a personal level, how is the government of Sri Lanka, or how did the government of Sri Lanka rather affect and help this exhibition?
Of course, exhibition was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister Dinesh Vardana, Honorable Minister Ali Shabri, then Honorable Minister Ramesh Patirana, and all the senior senior ministers participated for the occasion, and of course they were analyzing the need analysis and the gap analysis to take policy decisions. Of course, the previous government had certain issues. The latest government is they are planning to restructure certain national policies. So with their intervention, with their collaboration, especially the export-oriented manufacturing economy, what we are anticipating. So they got a lot of information with regard to all these gaps and the needs.
Right.
So hope they'll be able to, in future, maybe in 2024 budget, whatever, they'll be able to give a lot of benefits, tax matters and so on, to the small and SMEs, small and medium entrepreneurs.
Right. Now, it's indeed a great venture to have such an exhibition and connect these suppliers and all of these influential people with those who are interested in starting their business. But whatever resources they have, in the end, it's up to them to really go ahead, take that risk and start a business. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka versus overseas, we definitely see some more dynamic personalities who, even from a very young age, even from their teenage years, tend to start their own businesses. What are some of the advice and the tips that we can take from foreign countries when it comes to entrepreneurship and implement here?
Yeah, as I told you at the beginning, the psychology is very important. So if you have this, if you try to inculcate the entrepreneurial psychology, so that will be great. So apart from this exhibition, we are planning to have entrepreneurial clubs in Sri Lankan schools.
Right.
So that maybe during from their school age, they'll be getting a better knowledge, so that they'll be able to focus their attention and they'll be able to take the proper leadership, the inspiring leadership, and come up on their own and help others also, rather than depending on others. So
right.
I think it's a very lovely initiative. We started from the Nalanda College, Colombo, to have these entrepreneurial clubs, and we are planning to expand into all the other countries in Sri Lanka.
Okay. And do you think that having such a club in the school level itself will be much beneficial than them learning about it after their schooling career?
Of course, during that period, if they get the idea, if they get the vision and the mission with regard to entrepreneurial psychology, and maybe once when they come out from the school, automatically they'll be focusing their attention rather than not going on the trend, not going on the popular trend. I think here some people, they try to divert their attention into IT, some people into other areas, but if they have the skill, business skill, knowledge and the attitude, so I think automatically they'll be able to, if they get this proper information during their school days, hopefully they'll be able to come up on the ladder like in other countries. So in Sri Lanka also you get interact clubs, you get Leo clubs. So once when they become mature, automatically they'll be Rotary, or they'll be linking into Lions, and they'll be doing more towards CSR activities, corporate social responsibility activities, and they'll be focusing more on the deserving people. So likewise, from the school days, if they get the knowledge and the idea about these entrepreneurial clubs, so they'll be getting a proper knowledge to go ahead, how to start up a business, where to capture, how to get information, and to build up their own dream.
Right. Now coming to industrial psychology, tell us something about that, your knowledge based on the industrial psychology as well.
Of course, I think always we'll have to adapt the give and take basis.
Right.
It's we should not squeeze somebody too much. And the most important question is, most important concept is, if organizations can adapt the concept of work-life balance, I think that will be fantastic, because of happy man is more productive. So nowadays, to keep people happy and to make your productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, and the profitability is very important. Those are the all underlying returns to organizations. So if you keep your employees happy, and if you are concerned about their needs and the requirements, automatically they will give you more, in return they will give you more benefits, so that their productivity, profitability, efficiency, effectiveness will be pretty high. But it's a very pathetic situation in Sri Lanka. Most of the organizations, they are not concerned about work-life balance. They are not concerned about employees' psychology also. So they are not basically machines. So they do have a lot of other family ties, and they have to manage time, especially during the corona period. Physically they were not able to visit, not able to report to organizations, but most of them with the latest technology, they were working online. So even that period also, online period also, they had a lot of difficulties. So that is the issue. The level of stress has gone tremendously up. Of course, in our country, so I think that is the reason why all these criminological rates are pretty high, gun shooting and the underworld issues, and everybody is hot-tempered like. So because of that, I think, as I mentioned, you have to get into their shoes and think. So in order to maintain a peaceful industrial relation setup. So most of the organizations, once when you are not flexible, I think they try to form trade unions, especially with different interference. They will try to fight for their rights. So which it's going to be a bottleneck for the organizational efficiency, effectiveness, productivity, and the profitability. But in return, if you try to coach them, mentor them, guide them, and to have a conducive working environment, especially as I highlighted, to adapt a give and take basis, give and take policy. So then automatically employees will be happy, and as I told you, as I highlighted before, happy man is more productive. So the hungry man is more aggressive. So because of that, you'll have to be extremely think from the business psychology and the industrial psychology, and to win their heart and get the maximum return. So that is very important, and I think if most of the industries, whether it's large scale or small and medium or whatever, if they can adopt those policies, that will be fine. Otherwise, they will, if there are barriers with regard to work-life balance, there will be work-life conflicts. So once you have all these work-life conflicts, automatically they will not contribute to the organization. So there will be a lot of issues, there will be a lot of unpleasant environment, unpleasant incidents, and it will hinder our growth as well as the organization growth. So it's always better to have a cordial relationship, talk with them, doors are open, and even top management can come and talk to anybody. So I think that would be ideal, and it's always, as highlighted, it's we try to maintain a give and take policy.
Okay. And what are some of the latest innovations to the industry as of now?
Of course, the latest technology, raw materials, logistic hub, supply chain management, as well as the industrial psychology is very important. So whatever the machines, whatever the automotive spare parts, whether it is plantation, whether it is IT, whether it is pharmaceutical items, whether it is textile, whether it is garments or whatever, the human interference is there. So always I think this industrial psychology and the concepts as work-life balance, the flexible working hours or whatever, it will be benefited to both parties.
Right, okay. And coming back to IDB and speaking of the management, how has it been with the team that you're working with right now, and sharing of ideas and all of that? How is it?
Of course, we have a inspiring leader, Dr. Sarangala Peruma. So he's into is the top person in this organization, and Mr. Ratna Malala, who is a chartered engineer who has worked here for a long period. So with that combination, as well as Mrs. Tilaka Jayasundara, Secretary, Ministry of Industries, they are giving a tremendous support for day-to-day operations as well as for the exhibition. Mrs. Tilaka Jayasundara, she was attached to a productivity center, and even Mr. Ratna Malala's engineering background. So they are giving a fantastic opportunity to everybody to have a balanced life at IDB. So we have altogether about 714 employees. So we always try to keep them on a comfortable wicket, so that they'll be their tireless support will be given to handle this sort of a mammoth exhibition.
Right. And when it comes to your organization and its online facilities, do you have an online website, maybe an app that they can download? What are your services?
Especially with regard to this virtual exhibition, they can go through our website. So from that portal, they'll be able to go ahead with the virtual platform. So www.idb.lk is our website. So from this website, they'll be able to get a lot of information with regard to all our training facilities also. So we have a lot of training programs. We have for startup business as well as for women empowerment and so on. So you get a lot of information. All the information it's available on our website, so they can easily go through that and download. It's in all 3 languages.
Right. And do you have a mobile app as well?
We do have a mobile app as well.
Right. And I believe that offers some of the same services as the website.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to one particular service, you mentioned about training programs for startups. How do those programs usually work?
It's during the weekends as well as during weekdays. We have a lot of training programs. So we try to get all of experts and we try to disseminate the knowledge as well as this information. I think especially for startups, the information is not freely available. So due to that reason, they are a bit scared to go ahead extra mile and think. So always we are there to help them, guide them, coach them and mentor them, and to put them on the proper ladder. IDB, a lot of training programs are there for startups.
Right. And are these physical training programs, or do you have online versions of them as well? How is
Of course, we have online as well as physical. During the corona period and during the previous year, we had a lot of online programs, and now we have a lot of physical programs at our head office at Katubedda Moratuwa.
Okay. Now, before we reach the end of the program, at the very start of the interview, you mentioned that you were into the subject of finances, but at the same time you pursued subjects such as psychology, so on and so forth. For someone who is interested in going into this industry and starting off their own and going into the corporate world, what would be your recommendations for some of the crucial subjects which they can pursue? Because there are so many subjects now in today's society, so a lot of young individuals confused as to what they should pursue. What would be your advice on this?
Of course, if it's an integration, that we find when it comes to the corporate level and when it comes to the strategic level. Otherwise, if you are going ahead with one subject, it's a bit difficult. And nowadays we have these a lot of online programs and a lot of foreign degrees available in Sri Lanka. So rather than migrating, you get a lot of foreign universities. You can do a lot of foreign programs in Sri Lanka. And if it's an integration, a lot of things, so that once it comes to the strategic level or when you step into the management level, it will be quite comfortable decisions, either maybe from the legal side, maybe from the management side, maybe from the finance side. You'll be analyzing, and you'll be, of course, you'll be do a pistol or whatever, and through analyzing all these strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, you'll be able to take the proper decision at the proper time, at the proper cost. So it will be benefited to the organization once when you have dynamic professionals. So nowadays it's if you try to just go through these individual CVs, they have sometimes a lot of qualifications, but when it comes to decision making, it's going to be certain decisions to take decisions with regard to business, you'll have to have the tacit knowledge as well as the implicit knowledge. So if you have a mingle of both, and once when you have the practical experience and the exposure, you'll be taking the proper decision at the proper time, at the proper cost.
Right. And especially I believe if you're going to be a CEO one day, it's always good to know about every little industry or subsector within your organization. Now, before we wrap up today's discussion, with all that you've shared and with all the knowledge you have with regards to entrepreneurship, what would be your message and what would be your advice to the young aspiring entrepreneur who's planning on starting off on their own? What would be your message to them?
So before getting to the deep sea, always coordinate, cooperate, get advice from proper organizations, especially with regard to organizations blessed by the government, so that they'll be able to focus you, they'll be able to direct you on the proper platform, so that you'll be able to divert your business. Maybe the startup business, you start from one and you try to divert into other areas also. So as I highlighted, this profitability, efficiency, effectiveness, and the availability of raw materials, and especially when it comes to a turbulent period, how are you going to manage? There are a lot of small scale industries, they had a lot of financial difficulties during the past turbulent period. So because of that, so how to manage, how to take the challenge is a question. So in order to get advice, so it's always better to deal with a matured organization, more than 50 years old, Industrial Development Board. We have set of professionals to business report writing, advice on finance, advice on entrepreneurship, advice on strategic planning, advice on need analysis, advice on technology, infrastructure, management consultancy, and institutional linkages, as well as the marketing. So marketing is also another very important hub where whatever you manufacture, if you are not in a position to market it locally or globally, again your finance is tied up. So because of that, whether you have working capital problems, fix the capital borrowings or whatever, the geared ratio, how to get finance, the backing from banks, how to negotiate for credit, and so on, so forth. All these, it's all interlinked. So because of that, step into a proper place, get proper advice, take the challenge, and hope you'll be able to succeed one day.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that advice and your knowledge. That was Mr. Chaminda Ramasundara, a Senior Director, Administrative Division of the Industrial Development Board. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you very much.
And that winds up today's episode of Business Today. Do join us next time as well. Till then, have a good night.
And give others also